Oh, honey, thank you. Breakfast is ready. Maybe, yeah. I mean, I've been here a while.
Good evening, London. Allow me first to apologize for this emergency, child. I do, like many of you, appreciate the comforts of the everyday routine, the security of the familiar, the tranquility of repetition. I enjoy them as much as any bloke. But in the spirit of commemoration, whereby those important events of the past, usually associated with someone's death or the end of some awful bloody struggle, are celebrated with a nice holiday, I thought we could mark this November the 5th, a day that is sadly no longer remembered, by taking some time out of our daily lives to sit down and have a little chat. There are, of course, those who do not want us to speak. Just let me think. Even now, orders are being shouted into telephones, and men with guns will soon be on their way.
It's Chancellor Sattler.
Damn it. Why? Because while the truncheon may be used in lieu of conversation, words will always retain their power. Words offer the means to meaning, and for those who will listen, the enunciation of truth. And the truth is, there is something terribly wrong with this country, isn't there?
You designed it, sir. You wanted it foolproof. You told me every television in London.
Cruelty and injustice, intolerance, depression. And where once you had the freedom to object, to think and speak as you saw fit, you now have censors and systems of surveillance coercing your conformity and suppressing your submission.
We need cameras.
How did this happen? Who's to blame? Well, certainly there are those who are more responsible than others. They will be held accountable. But again, truth be told, if you're looking for the guilty, you need only look into a mirror. I know why you did it. I know you were afraid. Who wouldn't be? War, terror, disease. There were a myriad of problems which conspired to fear got the best of you. And in your panic, you turned to the now High Chancellor Adam Sattler. He promised you order. He promised you peace. And all he demanded in return was your silent, obedient consent.
Inspector, we're almost through.
Last night, I sought to end that silence. Last night, I destroyed the Old Bailey to remind this country of what it has forgotten.
More than 400 years ago, a great citizen wished to embed the 5th of November forever in our memory.
His hope was to remind the world that fairness, justice, and freedom are more than words. They are perspectives. So if you've seen nothing,
if the crimes of this government remain unknown to you, then
I would suggest that you allow the 5th of November to pass unmarked. But if you see what I see, if you feel as I feel, and if you would seek as I seek, then I ask you to stand beside me 1 year from tonight, outside the gates of Parliament, and together we shall give them a 5th of November that shall never, ever be forgotten.
Oh, morning. Good evening. Good afternoon, wherever you are. And welcome to Dreamy Dreamland. Well, I've been offline because a lot of things. Winter's showing up. I'm kind of preparing. I live out off the grid and pretty raw. And spring, summer, fall is beautiful. So I have a nice spring. And I have nice photocells. And, a camp stove. And I died in 2014. And I woke up being rolled into an emergency room where they were going to cut off my legs, do a quadruple bypass in my heart, and give me a colostomy. Not a colostomy. The thing where they put the bag on your gut and take out your intestines. And I woke, and I had a drip in my arm, and I had fentanyl going, and it was like I woke up from that, and they were like totally. Oh, there's the Swami, and so um, when I died in a plate of spaghetti, I had died already 6 other times. I died when I was born as a blue baby. My mother's umbilical wrapped around my neck, and the moron doctor smoking cigarettes. I mean, they were all smoking. My mom was smoking, and the doctors were smoking. I could taste it. I could taste. I could remember being in my mother's uterus and tasting the tobacco. I was never a big fan of tobacco. Tobacco is the most addictive drug there is. I think no, I think fear is the most addictive drug there is. Anyway, let's see what else we got here. Internet's running real slow today. I don't have it at all in the woods. I had to drive 40 miles, so that's why I have no money. How about putting something? Hey, fuck Mananda, why don't you put something in PayPal? Right? You've got a lot of cash. You know, I know you're cheap as dirt, but the difference of me living and dying, yeah, to me, I don't care. I mean, I woke up this morning. It was warmer outside than it was in my man cave because I can't afford heat. I don't have any heat. I mean, I do have my electric blanket. But my electric blanket was warm. But getting out from underneath it, woo, well, but I got up to go to church, and I go to these 3 churches. And what's really interesting, all the churches are gung ho for war. They're all Christian churches. Jesus Christ, the Prince of Peace. Yeah, they're all gung ho for war. And the Ku Klux Klan Southern Baptist Church, and those people are very nice. And the kids really love me. Right? So I go to the Baptist Bible study, and I like it because they have a nice. I don't have it with me, but they have a nice little primer about it, and I read it. I take notes. And I look things up in the Bible, and I go. Let's have a nice year. I would be respectful. I wouldn't, try to upstage the guy, but it's so easy because he doesn't even stick to the lesson plan. Doesn't even stick to the Bible. So since this thing kicked off in Palestine, every Sunday they go on about how all the Muslims need to die. Really? And that's what I said. Really? I said, yeah, all the Palestinians need to die. That's Jerusalem. That's that's in the Bible. That's you don't even read the Bible. Jeremiah. You read Jeremiah because almost exactly what's going on in Israel. And the end of Israel, I mean, yeah, it's the end of Israel in Jeremiah. And they go into 600 years of them being the pogrom. Right? And what I think is going to happen in Israel, very soon, I mean, they're already up to 10,000 killed Palestinians, and most of them children, because, the majority of the population of Palestine is children. And Israel, they got to get rid of those guys because if they don't, they're going to have trouble in 15 years. because the kids who were kids 15 years ago are now Hamas, right? And Israel created Hamas. Israel gives money to Hamas. Israel gives weapons to Hamas. And it's looking more and more like Israel did a false flag here. Go. Let's see. If you see my show earlier, a couple days ago, I played the Gray Line. And those guys were going on about how it was a scam. Where is our boy? Now you need to go watch a guy named Dark Journalist and Jimmy Dore and the Gray Zone or the Gray Line or the Gray something. Can't find Johnny Boy. Let's see if he got rid of it. He had this cutest little video of Johnny Boy and the squirrel. I don't know why he would take that one down. It was so cute. Let's see, he says this one here. Talk about people's meanness. Oh. Yeah, I see what that is.
Here's a simple method that anyone with an enlarged prostate can do to help empty their bladder fully in one go.
Hi everyone, it's John Birmingham. Hey. Here's Ayla. That's her. I think my mom filmed her in Texas when I was in Texas. That's Ayla. She's my daughter. I love her very much.
It's not his daughter. That's his ex and one night stand with the toe guy.
I remember somebody commented on stuff, said kind of nice things, but kind of mean. I'm sorry I blocked him. I thought I'd show him and say something. She's really good. I don't know how many times. How much stress is on me to try to keep
How much stress is on him? He's living in a 7,000 square foot school, and that I sold to him. And his parents pay all his bills. He's not really under too much stress. I'm living out in the woods. He's thrown me out of that school 32 times. And why? I let and in a like year and a half period, right? And being there to begin with, I tried to help him out, and because he was, and so he threw me out. And the first time he threw me out, I had no place to go, had no idea what to do. I went up to see if some friends of mine in West Virginia I had a full tank of gas. See, I don't even have a vehicle now. So John keeps texting me, please come stay with me to school. Well, how am I going to get there? It's 200 miles away. I mean, people will pick me up and take me to church and take me to the doctors, and they're not going to drive me 200 miles. But John is the example of what my church. So my church, the three churches have been going on and on about the terrible Muslims. Basically, 40% of everyone in Palestine is Christian. That big hospital that got hit, and it unbelievably burnt about 100 people who were just trying to, they were staying all around the hospital hoping that the Israelis wouldn't bomb the hospital. And they were outside in tents and they got barbecued. And the hospital couldn't take care of them. And so anyway, it was like a football game. Every time I come in Sunday, people go, oh, look, the Jews are not killing more Muslims. They're not. They're killing human beings, mostly children. And all around the world and in the United States, you say anything like close to what I'm saying, it's like, oh. So today, we went into that, and they're putting up a bigger American flag than the one they had. Right now, where the flagpole is now, the American flag is so big, it puts a shadow on the cross of the church. And I was like looking at that, and the pastor came over, and he's in a really nice suit. And I look like a homeless guy. But I'm the only guy who really kind of knows the Bible, so that for years and I don't really challenge their belief. I just give them, hey, what about this? And the whole thing about them going on, about calling the Muslims, how this is a biblical thing and God is on our side. The last 2 weeks, I've been talking about how, if you look in the Bible, God is never on the warrior side, right? I'm like, Israel, for being the chosen people, and see, they're not the Israeli people, right? They're the Hebrew nation, right? Of the 12 tribes. And the Anunnaki, the Aryans, are the 13 tribes. Just like Judas was the 13th apostle. And Judas had grown up with Jesus since they were little kids. And Judas did, the one thing that had to be done that no one could do, right? There were about 400 things that the Old Testament, you see, the Old Testament, everyone's all gaga. Christians or modern Christians or Baptist Christians or revivalist Christians are all about, end of times. And someone asked, so when's end of times? And he said, I have no idea. Now, who's God? Well, God has no idea. And, what's going on? And why God said that was that it's up to us when the times are over, right? Because we live in sin. When everyone's talking, oh, you're a sinner, you're a sinner, you're a sinner. Well, yeah, it's true. We live in a world of sin. Materialism is sin. Capitalism is sin. Socialism is sin. There is no materialistic political structure that's holy. Right? What has to be experienced is that we 2014 when I died, up to that from about 99 to 2014, I slowly got into the corporate world. as a consultant. And in 2006, I hit the gold mine. Right? I became a consultant to desperate corporate lawyers, right? In their deposing witnesses, in picking jurors, and in negotiating contracts with stupid rich people. And so I didn't have to work more than 11 weeks a year to make a six-figure salary. So I worked less. I kept it under the six figures, right, for my tax purposes, because I didn't need all that money. And even that money allowed me to, when I was doing demographics, I kept bumping into things that were just too good to be true. So by 2003, because of the dot-com bubble, I mean, that was a depression, that was a recession. And they give them cute names. And they're all very obvious, meaning it was obvious that, it was a bubble. They were pumping, just like in 1986, the savings and loan debacle. 7 senators made that happen, and they didn't go to jail. They made a lot of money, though. They got exposed, but most of the Republicans were had blood on their hands. So you can see what's going on, or you can be like,
And of course, I just ate almost half a cake this morning. I ate almost half a cake. People think you're supposed to be like skinny or something. Who cares? Ayla doesn't know that. Who cares? She's just how God wants her to be.
Ayla is autistic. Ayla is, she has every. I don't know the kid. I only saw it once in reality when it was a baby, and John hasn't been with his kids at all. Period. Right. I would say most of his neuroses is his guilt about that, but he won't deal with it. I've tried to help him do it. When I was living there for that year and a half before he started throwing me out, and he would want to go somewhere. He was scared to drive his car. He was scared to go, get stuff. This was before the pandemic, before they delivered food to your house. So, I did all his whatever he needed, right? And when he had to go someplace where he had to physically, I would go with him, take him there, walk him in. I was like his security dog. And so one time I knew where, and John's ex with his 2 sons were living in one of John's parents' houses, a very nice one. She didn't have to pay any insurance. She didn't have to pay the tax. She didn't have to pay water, gas, electric, nothing. She just lived there, right? And for about 2 years. And I, 3 different times, brought John there, right? The first 2, he was so disconnected from reality, he didn't even realize we were driving that house, right? And so the first time I did, I got out of the car, and he realized where it was. I said, John, I'm going to go get the kids so you can play with them. And he was so freaked out that he was trying to get over the center column and get in the driver's seat and take the keys and drive the car away, right? So I took the keys out and left him there, got the keys, and his, John said, she won't let him come. No, she's sick and tired of those boys, She was sick and tired of them when they were 5 and 6. And so when I said, hey, I knocked on the door, she knew who I was. I had met her. And I said, so why don't you let the boys go play with John? She goes, sure. You want to be left alone. So, the only reason she kept them was she was monetizing them as a prop in her videos, on the shelf videos, until the people complained and they took it down. It was like child abuse. And again, don't believe a word I say. This is all a story. I'm a griot. I'm telling you a story. The story of humanity, right? So, how about one thumbs up? Come on, one of you guys. Come on. So, So she gave me the keys to her nice Lexus that John's parents bought, got for the family, and all the kids' toys, their bikes and their skateboards were in there, and there's a little park down the end of their road. So I drove down there. We all got out. There was nobody there riding their bikes around, and they're kind of just running around, just burning off kid energy, right? And they start climbing up the chain link fence to the roof of the baseball thing. Thanks, buddy. And that was it. They were 40 feet up in the air and jumping up and down like it was a trampoline. Now they could fly off and kill themselves. And John was, and I just kept saying, I went in the back. If they went flying off, I would catch them. And John was, and the boys go, well, that was fun. So I take your bikes, go, let's see how fast you can go up that hill. Whoa, and they get up the tip of the hill and they came running down. They crash. That's why not. I said, run up the hill and roll down the hill. And John is still going, and these guys came over to John and said, come on, Dad, let's play. And they wanted to play with their father. And John was just, And so, so John gets horny and her car breaks down and she has sex with the tow truck guy. And they have a baby, and he kind of hangs out just because he's getting some money from her and stooping her. And so, but when John says that, that baby is mine, it's my daughter. No, it's not. Right? And he hasn't. His kids, his oldest, I think, is 17. The last time he saw them, they were like, 9 and 7. Now the middle one. He's got his head screwed on straight. He's sharp, and the oldest one, he's sharp too. He's a lot like John. He's very talented. Hopefully, he's seeing everything that's going on, and he won't follow down his daddy's track. So it'll be interesting to see what happens for that kid with all those kids, because they are, they come from the gene pool of the golden canary in the coal mine of pain and truth. He's the patent painter of truth, right? The saint of truth. So, and the truth can set you free, right? So the thing is, I have experienced that as a like born again experience since I was born, because I died when I was born. And I remember that. Hey, buddy, stay well. Enjoy this beautiful day.
Stays warm enough.
Well, it's all relative. It's going to get colder.
Damn it.
Yeah. It's almost like causing it to get cold, Yeah, people don't understand that words have power. That's why I constantly say love is all there is. That's the only thing. Everything else is an illusion. Morning. So at that church, the Ku Klux Klan Baptist church, so I go there and I go to Bible studies, and normally I don't stick around for services because then I'd be a hypocrite, because they're doing their thing and they want you to pretend that it's your thing and it's important and that God is picking you over everybody else because you're doing that thing. Right? Now, I grew up a Roman Catholic. I was, in a seminary to be a Catholic priest. I was in a super duper seminary to be a rocket scientist for the Pope. And I just saw the hypocrisy, and I couldn't be a hypocrite. And what is hypocrite? The Greek verb, the text, is hypocrite are when the actors, when they put the masks on, in the Greek theater, they had a mask that had on one side a smile and on the other a frown, right? And Shakespeare took them and made two masks, a happy mask and a right. Those are the masks of the hypocrite. And the hypocrite, from the Greek word, from the root, means this is not my real face. And so all people who do things, and we call them hypocrites, is because that's not who they really are, right? So, that's where we're at. And you go, right? So I made that comment once. I said, no, I love coming to Bible studies, but, you know, coming to your sanctuary and doing the ceremony, I don't want to be a hypocrite. And they kind of don't understand the Greek root or any of the above, right? And guys who wore the mask in Shakespeare time were actors. So that means everyone in that church is an actor. Because I know these people, I see them out and about, and there's a handful that really are righteous, right? And out of that handful, half of them are guys who are my age and, about to die. So they're trying to double down on being righteous so they'll go to heaven. Well, that's not how it really works, right? And you could be the biggest sinner ever, and at the your last breath, go, I'm sorry, I'm really sorry, God. Please help me out here. Right? I need help. Bang, you're dead. You go to heaven, right? And so, the original sin thing that Catholics go on about, that basically, if you go by liturgy, Jesus kind of washed that away in the sanctifying blood of his death, right? So, and that's why blood is so important in all these religions, because it's a sacrifice, right? So, $11 for breakfast. Not bad. But when I first started coming here, a year and a half ago, before the big pandemic explosion of inflation, breakfast here was $6. That breakfast was $6. Now there's another place that isn't open on Sunday. That breakfast is $6. Anyway, and so that's life. It's a smorgasbord of everything, not just religion, not just that breakfast, not just politics, not just people trying to escape. Yeah, JFK's quest for peace. That was one. I'm here. Let's see. Listen to this guy, Colonel.
What is that? Oh my God! What is that?
So, Colonel Douglas McGregor joins us. Colonel, always a pleasure. Thank you for your time and your insight. Is the Israeli government running out of time to save itself from the consequences of a massive ground invasion in Gaza?
Well, I think it's certainly headed in that direction. I don't know if it already has. We have to listen to what the Russian ambassador had to say in the United Nations, as well as other leaders in the region. We have to note the recent meeting between the foreign ministers of Turkey and Iran, and then the conversations between the Iranian foreign minister, Mr. Erdogan. All of these things have an ominous tone about them. That doesn't mean that everything is about to fall on Israel immediately, but I think we're headed in that direction, and it doesn't appear that anyone in Washington is interested in halting the rush into disaster.
Was one of Hamas's goals on October 7th to induce an Israeli overreaction so as to coalesce Arab animosity in the region against it?
Well, it's not unreasonable to make that point, but we haven't talked to anyone in Hamas. We don't know what their thinking happens to be, but if that wasn't their intention, it certainly turned out to be that way.
Is the Israeli military walking into a trap by attempting to wage a land war in a place as treacherous, as urban, as filled with tunnels and old buildings as Gaza is?
I think so. I would say on many levels. If we go back to the summer of last year, when the war in Ukraine was changing or evolving, and the world's eyes were fixed almost exclusively on what was happening there, had the Israelis confronted Hamas at that point, I think the Israelis would have had an easier time waging this sort of ruthless, scorched earth campaign against Hamas than they have right now. It's simply a function of the fact that the world is not looking at Ukraine because the world knows the truth. The war in Ukraine is effectively over. The losses and the destruction in Ukraine are horrendous. Ukrainians can't do much about it. So everyone is focused on Israel, and they're seeing things that upset them. Broad pictures being carried out of the rubble in Gaza, horrendous national reaction out of each of the Arab states and from the so-called Arab street. So that's definitely part of it. And on another level, I think that the region is increasingly coalescing into this alliance that might have otherwise never occurred. There's a readiness to take action. There's no doubt about it against the Israelis. And we, again, are the loyal, obedient servants of Mr. Netanyahu and his government.
The loyal, obedient servants of Mr. Netanyahu and his government. I'm sure that that's the way he feels, and of course that is the way we behave. Back to Erdogan. Are his rantings and ravings before 1 million people, whatever the size of that crowd was, to be taken as for domestic political purposes or in preparation for support for military activity?
Both. There's no question about it. I think both are accurate. Mr. Erdogan is a clever, manipulative politician, if ever there was one. But he's also a very powerful nationalist in the Turkish sense and widely respected inside his country. If for nothing else, his strength in leading Turkey. In fact, you could say that in many ways, he's regarded by many of the Turks in this sense as a strong leader, the way many Israelis regarded Mr. Netanyahu. I think he's deadly serious. And for the Turks to hold these meetings with the Iranians in public, they've always had meetings privately from time to time, but for these meetings to be so public is a very, very important signal to the world.
Why do you think that Prime Minister Netanyahu doesn't take note of this, or if he takes note of it, isn't acting upon it? I mean, my view is that his situation politically at home is so precarious, he only stays in office for as long as the war is being waged. And the minute the war is over, he's out of office and maybe out of freedom. But I would think if Iran and Turkey are cooking something up, and with Erdogan riling up the masses, Netanyahu ought to take note of it and perhaps do something like pull the troops back or let humanitarian aid in. So my question is, if there's a ceasefire, who wins or who's perceived as winning?
You know, I don't know that there will be any winners if there is an immediate ceasefire. In other words, something happens right away. It'll take time to sort out, but I think whatever happens will work to Israel's disadvantage strategically. And I think Mr. Netanyahu, and by the way, I haven't met him. I don't know him. I've read other people's assessments, but I can't evaluate him personally. But I think that he is a ferocious fighter for Israel. There's no question about that. But I also think he's got us in a position where I think he believes this is the time to leverage American national power to try and settle accounts, if he can do it, with his neighbors. And he is focused on that almost to the exclusion of everything else. We are giving him unconditional support on the assumption that he is going to be successful, that he will go in, root out Hamas, destroy the place, and that he can get that done before anything else happens. And we put our forces there as a stopgap measure in the event that Hezbollah attacks. I think it will. I don't know what the timing it will be, but I think they ultimately will do that so that we can distract Hezbollah from interfering with what Mr. Netanyahu is trying to do further south. And I think that's it. I think that's all there is right now. And many Israelis have complained.
And so there you go. That's Colonel Doug's point of view, and he's a military guy. He's a colonel. He's been at it. He's seen it, and his point of view is something to listen to. And again, like me, don't believe a word I say. I am your griot. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland. And don't believe a word I say. Right? Just take this in. This is shamanic, like a little ceremony, just like the church is, right? And I'm that little shamanic pebble in the pond of the World Wide Web, which ain't going to be here very much longer. Why do you think Elon Musk spent over $40 billion buying a piece of crap like X, Twitter? Because he needed a platform that he can plug into his satellite system up above, right? And that is going to be the new internet because you can just look. Why did he give? Russia came in, attacked, and they kind of disrupted um, Ukraine's internet system, right? And without it, their military was really hampered, right? And so, the C-17 flew in about 300 of Mr. Elon Musk's satellite Earth stations, and about 15,000 little nodes that you could plug into their internet, and they set it up within a week, and they had uninterruptible, indestructible um, an internet system based on Elon Musk's satellite system. Now, what was interesting when they brought the Abrams tanks, when they got all those big tanks, and that was going to be a big change, and they were starting their little, going after the Russians with their new toys. Elon Musk, he in his office just hit a switch, and it knocked out right where all of those tanks. That's why, about 10 Abrams were lost in one day because those guys couldn't communicate to anybody. They had no internet. They had no GPS. They had no nothing, and it enabled the Russians to get a beat on them and take them out. And that was just Elon saying, "Listen, I'm a nice guy. I'm supporting you, but I can turn this thing off anytime I want." That was more of a message to the rest of the world, saying, "Kids, I don't think you realize. You think I'm just some guy with rocket ships and electric cars, and I'm playing with all this money, and no, he's a poster boy of Mr. Blownaloney, just like Bill Gates, just like miniature penis and faceless boy and all of those guys. They came from nowhere, and yet they came from the same educational system. The one that I came from, the one that was set aside from everybody else, the one for the privileged few, the one for the special kids. We were going to, trim and make, next, just like the guy who's Secretary of State. He's like, 20 years younger than me, but he comes from where I went to school and all of the influences, the educational. But the people, what was quite interesting in that system, there would always be an outlaw there, a cheeky monkey within the system. And they would come to me and say, "Yo, Al, I've been watching you, and you just do amazing things without even thinking about it. You speak truth to power without even thinking about it. You stand up to bullies and don't even know you're standing up to bullies, right?" So I can't really step into it, but I'm going to give you. So these guys constantly gave me the heads up, the 411, gave me books to read, things to do. And that's why I'm your griot. That's why I'm your sensei Alba. And I've had an amazing life. I'm writing 18 novels right now, right? And if you want to see any of them, get a hold of me at dudewake42@gmail, dudewake42@gmail, and say, "Hey, here I am," and then I'll have your email and I'll send you a novel. Now they're all manuscripts right now; they're not novels. Meaning, a novel is when you have everything edited, everything perfect, and it's ready to go to the galleys, right? but I have 18 of them. So I got 5 that are pretty, tight, but still neat. And that's why I want to send them out to people and get their opinion, right? So I have been doing it, and I'm not getting the opinion I want. They go, "This is amazing. This is like groundbreaking. This is art." Well, freaking everything humans do is art. No, what do you really like about it? How does it ring your bell? Tell me where I'm going right. Tell me where I'm going wrong. What should I fix? What shouldn't I? Or they could say, "Oh, don't touch it." I would say, "No, I know I need to touch everything about it, right? I need a good editor." So, any good editors out there, get a hold of me. Anybody in the publishing business, get a hold of me. Do it awake42 at Gmail. Right? Anybody wants to talk to me, do it awake42 at Gmail. Anybody wants to throw something in my PayPal, which I could really use, because winter's coming and I'm living on $400, right? And I live way off the grid, and people come and make sure I'm still alive. But once I think this winter's going to be, I'm praying that it's not. But I mean, we had a pretty easy winter last winter, except for a 2-week period. The day before Christmas Eve and the day after New Year's Day, it was 60 degrees below zero during the day. I mean, it's 60 degrees, 60 degrees warm. And that week and a half, it was 60 degrees below freezing. 60 below freezing. It was pretty cold. Now, if the whole winter's like that, I don't know if your Sensei Al Bob will be around in the spring, which would be fine by me, right? Because I've been doing my best every day in every way, taking the piece of the earth and making it stronger, right? And all the kind of blowback. Like, so today when I was coming into church, there they were putting up this gigantic American flag. Like I said, the shadowing the cross. It's like they couldn't even see the symbolism of it. And and I walk up there and say, and I greet them with the greatest of blessings and good cheer. And a guy basically stops me with a clenched fist in my chest and goes, "Listen, you can't say anything on this property. Don't speak." Oh, well, that's a blessing. And he's like, "Ugh." And there are all these young folk who speak to me because they you hear me talking about the Bible and this and that, and so they say, "And you can't speak to anybody, one on one, especially the kids, right? Especially those teenagers. Don't tell them what books to read. Don't." I said, "Oh, that's a blessing." And I just kept saying, "Oh, that's a blessing." He got more and more angry. He got turned beet red every time I said, "That's a blessing." And basically, he thought I'd get angry and yell at him and turn around and never come back. But no, I was sweeter and nicer and saying, "That's a," and he, the crowd was gathering around and I was saying, "That's a blessing. Thank you. That's a blessing. Thank you." And then um, one of the guys who, doesn't, isn't threatened by me, let's say that, came up and said, "Yeah, here's some money. Go have breakfast." I'll talk to you later. So that's why I'm having breakfast. So he kind of took me here and gave me some money. He said, "Go have breakfast. I'll pick you up later." So that's why I'm here. And so I didn't talk to my friend that much. I was just sitting there meditating as he drove me here. And, and God said, "Okay, so you never go to their service. Start going to their service and don't say a word." When people say, because people always say, "How you doing, Al? Good to see you, Al. Sensei, it's a pleasure." I get a lot of that in these churches, right? And so I will just bow and smile. And if anyone says anything, I will have some cards saying, "I am in quiet silence. I'm not speaking to serve God." I'll just hand them that card. So it'll be interesting. So, so you sort of see what other little things can I play you? Do, 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 do.
The Egyptian Eye of Horus contains a hidden manifestation message. The ancient Egyptians knew that the small, pea-sized gland inside our brains, called the pineal gland, was the key to unlocking the mysteries of the universe and allowing us to directly connect to universal consciousness. Take a look at the image. On the left is the ancient Egyptian symbol, the Eye of Horus, and on the right is the... Much like other recent fires, such as and NORAD-tracked CCP satellites directly above all three fires at the time of ignition. Many people are saying it's directed energy weapons, and we are not getting any answers from our criminal government. The people of Lahaina have been given access back into their neighborhood, and there are more of these anomalies being discovered. A viral video of the Lahaina Pentecostal Church shows what appears at first glance to be an electrical fire in the ceiling. But how is everything in the church pristine, except for a portion of the roof seam and the wall at one end? Many are saying this looks like a laser cut through the roof. There is an area with just a few buildings that have been totally devastated by fire, while everything surrounding them has been untouched. It is unclear as to how these random buildings caught fire.
And obviously the building next door is fully intact, no structural damage, no fire damage whatsoever. And then you have this building here. You can see the scuba tanks in there. This was one of the dive shops. You can see it's completely and utterly burned from the inside out.
And there are automobiles in untouched areas that somehow completely burned out. Once again, with melted glass and aluminum.
Right? Little parking lot, gravel. Everything's looking good. Those cars are probably working somewhere. These have been here for a while. But then this thing, and I know it didn't get moved here because you can still see the scorch marks on the building. Okay, so how'd this thing catch fire? Scorch marks, right? It was definitely burning right here. Just a random car fire? Random truck fire? Okay, look at this. Look at this. How could this car? Okay, the building is perfectly fine. We got a concrete parking lot, right? I mean, even the trees are still good. And yet we got this guy. I mean, this car is melted, bro. This thing got absolutely melted. I mean, there's nothing. Someone probably threw the water bottle in there, but look at this thing, man. Now talk to me, people. Somebody, not a conspiracy theorist, but somebody that understands something.
Yes. Why did that happen? Well, real estate deal. Why is that thing going on in Palestine? Real estate deal. Why is that thing going on in Ukraine? Real estate deal. We are heading towards a change, right? Why are we getting electric cars? So no one will own a car, because if individuals own it, the system won't work. If every car around is like an Uber, you push a little thing on your phone and a box shows up within 30 seconds, that's about it. That's it. So let's see, what else can I show you? Well, I have you listen to it.
Whisper all sorts of things about the past, the present, and the future. It was then that the young man realized that Casey wasn't just making predictions about his life. He was making predictions about everyone, events that were to happen all over the world. And since then, Edgar Casey has been called the sleeping prophet. Let's find out why. Edgar Casey was born into a poor farming family in rural Kentucky. He was never an average kid. When other children were outside... Are those volcanoes still active? Oh, they are. Mount Etna just erupted a few months ago, and scientists at Mount Pelée said that the seismic activity there is above baseline. No. Now, if the poles do shift, as Edgar Casey predicts, the world map is going to look very different. Africa will be divided into 3 parts. The Nile will widen, and a brand new waterway will split the continent. As the Red Sea grows, Cairo will eventually disappear into the sea. Asia is already very seismic and will suffer the most dramatic changes. Land will be covered from the Philippines to Japan by the ocean. As the Pacific plate shifts, the islands of Japan will sink, leaving only a few small islands. Taiwan and most of Korea will be completely lost to the sea. The entire coast of China will be pushed inland hundreds of miles. The population of India will be told not to seek higher ground within the interior of the country due to buckling of the land. Instead, they'll have to head to the Himalayas. The high mountains of Tibet and Nepal will provide refuge. Antarctica will no longer be covered in ice, but will once again become fertile and green. Australia will lose nearly 25% of its land due to coastal flooding. The Adelaide area will become a new sea. The Simpson and Gibson deserts will become fertile farming land. New Zealand will actually grow in size and will once again connect to mainland Australia. And New Zealand will ultimately become one of the safest areas in the New World.
Lucky Kiwis.
Europe will suffer. Most of northern Europe will simply be gone, sunk into the sea, as the tectonic plate underneath it collapses. Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Denmark disappear, eventually becoming hundreds of small islands. Most of the UK, from Scotland to the English Channel, will disappear into the ocean, but several small islands will remain. London and Birmingham will actually survive, but not as cities, as islands. Ireland will disappear completely except for land at high elevation. Russia will be separated from Europe by an entirely new sea when the Caspian, Black, Kara, and Baltic seas combine. The new sea will stretch all the way to Siberia. Russia's climate will remain intact, leaving Russia to supply most of Europe's food.
Putin is going to be king of the world.
You mean he isn't already?
You make a good point.
In Canada, most of the coastline will be pushed in by 200 miles. Regions in Quebec, Ontario, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and areas of Alberta will become the refugee survival center of Canada. As the North American plate buckles, the new islands of California will be created with almost 150 separate islands. The West Coast will recede east toward Nebraska, Wyoming, and Colorado. The Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence will join and continue from the Mississippi River all the way to the Gulf of Mexico. All coastal areas from Maine to Florida will be taken over by water and pushed inland for miles. Most of the coastal areas of Mexico will be flooded. The California Baja coast will ultimately become a series of islands. Billions of people will be displaced by this cataclysm. Billions more will be killed.
Well, that was cheerful.
Sorry about that.
When is this pole shift supposed to happen?
Well, Casey said 1998.
Oh, we're fine.
Yeah, but NASA has detected a slight pole shift that could be a concern.
Well, when did they detect the shift?
1998.
Yeah, damn it.
To be fair, Edgar Casey has his detractors.
When I told Trump about this, he urged me to get this message out to as many audiences. Folks, I had a couple of deep conversations over the weekend. One of them was with a father of three who's almost 40 years old. He's as smart a guy as you can possibly meet as you go along the road to life. Thoughtful, sincere, very, very well read, and deeply concerned. He was, in fact, the first person that really made an argument that it may be too late already to stop the catastrophe that's coming. I thought about that. In fact, it made me a bit sleepless. The reality is, in real life, and that is where we live, there are consequences to craziness, insanity, madness, intimations towards violence,
The simple truth is there are 330 million people that live in the United States, and astounding percentages of them cannot tell you what the First Amendment is, don't know what the American Revolution was fought over, have no idea what side was what with regard to the Civil War, don't know much about World War II or the Civil Rights Movement, and don't know who the vice president is. There's a book that was written a long time ago, really a collection of essays. It was called the Federalist Papers, and it's a primer for what happens in a society, a republic, if the people don't care, if they have lassitude, they're apathetic, indifferent. There is something that it seems a lot of Americans don't understand. Even though they may be indifferent, there is no indifference on the part of those who would prey on that indifference to take power for themselves, for their selfish causes. That's exactly what happened in Israel. Benjamin Netanyahu is one of the world's most incompetent leaders of government, along with being one of its most corrupt. Here is how Benjamin Netanyahu stayed in power. He made a deal with the extremists, and the extremists did everything they could to incite the Palestinians. Bibi Netanyahu did everything he could to consolidate his power and to grant himself, as prime minister, a license to steal and to commit corrupt acts. Because he was accused of crimes, what he sought to do politically was to undo the independent Israeli judiciary. No democracy survives without an independent judiciary. And in the United States, a deep, deep, deep marker of our corruption and decay is in the corruption of the United States Supreme Court through people like Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito. But back in Israel, hundreds of thousands of people took to the streets to protest the attacks on democracy. They protested weekend after weekend after weekend. Over the course of a year, time and time again, Israeli national security officials warned the country was becoming vulnerable to attack because it looked weak. Weakness invites aggression. And then Hamas struck. And now the war has come. The war that is about to launch in Gaza is extremely dangerous. There is a Chinese naval task force that is arriving in the Middle East. There's a Russian naval presence. Most Americans don't know that an American destroyer was involved in sustained combat operations, shooting down Iranian drones shot from their Houthi allies in Yemen, aimed at Israel. The world is a powder keg, ready to explode. And just weeks ago, it wasn't so. The implications of Benjamin Netanyahu's incompetence and the weakness that was seen as a result of it, and the aggression that it inspired by a great evil as ISIS, is something every American should appreciate. Because now there are two American Air Force carrier strike groups off the coast of Israel. 2 million guns.
Like one of the strongest leaders anywhere in the world. And he's the leader of, right? He's the leader of Turkey. He's a very strong man, as you know, from Hungary. And he's the boss. There's no doubt about it. Hungary fronts on both Ukraine and Russia. If you spill a drop of American blood, we will spill a gallon of yours. You know, Hezbollah is very smart. They're all very smart. Hezbollah and Hamas. Hamas, has anyone ever heard of Hamas? Hamas terrorists. I want a shield over our country. If you don't like our religion, then we don't want you in our country, and you are not getting in. What happened yesterday was incredible. I mean, so many people killed. Very big number. Very, very big number. And vicious, too. Vicious. Young children just slaughtered. It's terrible what's going on. So,
some of Donald Trump's.
I mean, hummus? It's out of an Ali G skit where Ali G says, I like hummus. You put the dip in it and you can eat carrots with it.
It's just horrible.
Hummus.
But everything.
I mean, he's lost.
Is he that?
He's lost. That's some of Donald Trump's greatest hits on foreign policy, domestic policy. Problems with the fact we didn't even show you who he thinks he's running against.
Or where he thinks he is.
Or where he thinks he is. I mean, he got that wrong in Iowa.
He did. He was in South Dakota. Yeah.
I mean, come on. He's in the wrong
And
state.
Aide had to tell him, sir, it's
Okay.
actually.
So
Here's
joining
that.
us now.
It's really tough. I mean, to keep up with that and keep up who you're running against, who you beat, who you lost to. I mean, he still thinks he's running against Barack Obama, but he's not. One of the people he's running against, and maybe the reason why he doesn't know is because he won't debate him, is in the Republican primary, former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. What do you think? You've known Donald a long time, like us. Do you think when he gets up there and he freaks out, he can't remember Joe Biden's name? I mean, because you see him struggling.
Yeah.
And by the way, Biden does it too.
Yep.
So Biden does it too. So people, whenever you say this, go, well, Biden does it. Well, yeah, okay, he does. They're both old men, and they're both doing it. But he keeps saying he's running against Barack Obama, and you see him struggling up there, trying to remember what decade he's in. And he just, what do you think it's the pressure of
just no
of 91 counts?
Well,
What do you think it is?
Yeah, I think it's the stress of what he knows is coming in his criminal problems. And I think this week, because a lot of that stuff was from the last week,
Yeah.
that's all post Mark Meadows. And I think everybody that's watching needs to understand, from somebody who did this work for 7 years, you don't give Mark Meadows immunity unless the evidence he has is unimpeachable.
Oh, yeah.
And I said this yesterday. I want Republican voters to understand this. What's going to be happening in March? He's going to be sitting in a courtroom in Washington, D.C. with Mark Meadows 20 feet away from him, saying he committed crimes in front of me on my watch. Not some rogue prosecutor,
I want to stop you
Joe.
a second.
He's a former prosecutor.
He's a former prosecutor. I want to stop you right there, and I want to underline what I've said, because we have a lot of Democrats watching this show, but as I'm sure you know, we have a lot of Republicans that are watching this show. And I just want to say to my Republican friends that are watching, everybody that's testifying against Donald Trump, they're not editorial writers for the New York Times or primetime hosts at MSNBC. They are all Trumpers who stayed with Trump to the very end.
Yeah. Look, this is a guy who was Velcroed to Trump's hip for the entire 2020 campaign and all the post-campaign nonsense. And so this is deadly. It's done. He's going to be convicted.
But
It's over.
can't he run for president and put delay, and get out of it?
Well, I don't think he can delay it. No, I don't have the impression that this district court judge in Washington is amenable to delay.
It's a March 4th.
She seems pretty.
So it's a March 4th trial right
Yep.
now. What do you think? Maybe give or take a month. You think the judge may?
Yeah, I mean, maybe it starts in April. Maybe not though. I mean, look, she has not given much at this point into the defense claims for delay. And I think that's why Jack Smith indicted this case with just Trump.
Right.
Because you don't have multiple defendants.
Yes.
This is it. He left 6 unindicted conspirators, not because he doesn't think they committed crimes, but because he learned from the documents case. Like, I think he made a mistake.
By the way, they can bring cases against those other 6 later on if they don't cooperate.
As long as it's within the statute of limitations, they can.
Let me ask you this question. So let's say the trial is in mid-March, lasts a month. He's convicted by mid-April, and you look at least the evidence we know, it looks like it's an uphill battle for the defense. I know Trump's people are saying, well, we'll appeal. It's a D.C. Circuit judge, right? It's a judge. It'll go to the D.C. Circuit, then the Supreme Court. They're going to expedite this, aren't they? This is not going to be like a year.
I think they would. But remember, once you're convicted by a jury, you're convicted.
Right.
So he's going to have all kinds of new restrictions placed on him as now a convicted felon.
Okay,
in terms of his travel, his speech, all the things he can do. Right now he's out on bail. Let's remember.
Right.
And once you're convicted, you have the right to remand him immediately if you wanted to.
A former president, though?
No, I don't think they will. But the point is that when that's the extreme alternative,
right,
you can place all kinds of restrictions on him and say, you don't like those? Okay, we'll send you to jail.
Stay home.
It could be house arrest.
Ankle bracelet.
There's a whole bunch of things that can happen in terms of what he can do, where he can travel. He's going to have to go to probation to get permission to travel.
What's he convicted of?
Well, he'll be in the January 6th case. He's going to be convicted of obstructing Congress. That the actions that he took was obstructing Congress. That's the main and biggest charge that he's going to wind up being convicted of. And I think that Meadows, from what we're reading and being told he's going to say, and it makes sense to me, knowing what was going on then in the White House, is that everyone with any credibility was telling him it wasn't stolen. You didn't lose. You lost. You didn't win. And that's everybody. That's Meadows. That's Pat Cipollone. That's Bill Barr.
Right.
That's Bill Stepien, his campaign manager. Everybody has testified that they were telling him, you lost. There's nothing here. Add to it that they filed 60 lawsuits to try to challenge the results, and they went 0 for 60. I mean, you got to get the state of mind. And what was he thinking?
Right.
Well, it's not just subjective. It's not him saying, well, I didn't think it, so who cares? Mm-hmm. It's what is all the objective evidence that was being presented to you, and was it reasonable for you to have that state of mind? And I think any jury would probably conclude, given all those people testifying, that it was reasonable. They're all we saw this January 6th committee. Everybody around telling you know.
Please leave your message for 540.
Oh, Johnny's not picking up. Hey, John. I haven't been able to make phone calls or, intermittent phone calls, but, internet intermittent. Why'd you take down the squirrely guy? That was a cute little, very sweet video. I liked it a lot. And I wanted to show it on my channel and basically talk about how that kind of attitude, that sweetness, is what the world needs. Anyway, and I hope you YouTube guys have seen that show. So let's is there anything else I got to say? No, I think that's it. Except, there's 2,000 shows I have up. You go take a look at them. I would say store them on thumb drives and hard drives and CD-ROMs and your computer up in the cloud. But the cloud's going away. The internet's going away. That little thing about what's going to happen with the planet, Earth changes, not just global warming, not just weather change, but, and that's going to happen. I mean, it's happened to the planet numerous times, so why wouldn't it happen again, right? Just because we're here on it, we're just like salt on a potato chip, somewhat interesting, but not really important. But relationship to this guy, that's important. Your relationship to God, your service, being a doula to God, that's what's important, right? I mean, you give up your life or any of the above, but you basically bring God into your life, right? bring Jesus' unconditional forgiveness. That's the doorway into God's unconditional love. It's when you, so all this shit has been happening to me, and luckily, it's been incremental. And the more that it happens, it's like a blessing. And that's like when that preacher was going, "You can't talk, you can't run, you can come here, but don't, like be invisible, And, well, that's like impossible. And so, it's basically what's going on. So, as I feel like a carrot being peeled, right? But it's good because that's peeling away all the stuff I don't need, right? So, anyway, that's that is my motif. So, again, you want to get a hold of me? dudewake42 at Gmail. I want to send something to my PayPal, which I could truly use. Dudewake, go to PayPal. I say who? Could dudewake42 at Gmail. It still works. I got a little something a couple of weeks ago, so it still works. So, I appreciate it, and I look forward to hearing from you. I got 2 comments this time, and I again hope you're well, and as I am well, and even if I die, I'll be well. So every morning I wake up and I wake up in pain, and so. Hey, Johnny boy, you there? No.
To send a fax, press 6. To cancel this message, press star. To send this message now, press pound or hang up. Your message has been sent. Thank you for calling.
So Johnny got all that. So anyway, it's like right in front of our faces. There is no hiding anything. It's truly amazing, and it's up to you. You are the decider individually. You can decide what's going to go on in your life. So don't blame anybody. There are no excuses. It's up to you. Okay. So I'm going to say goodbye here. We've been here for an hour and 17 minutes. So now it's hour and 18 minutes, and at 18 seconds, I'm going to jump out. So how about some more thumbs up? I love you guys, and remember to breathe.